It's that time of year. TCU is active in the 2025 class. They're also adding players from the portal. We have a special guest to break down who these players are, what they bring to the table. That's coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Thank you to LinkedIn for bringing us recruiting nuggets from Brian Smith at FB Scout _ Florida. Brian is our resident scout, our recruiting expert here on the Locked On Network. And Brian, I know you love the transfer portal, and you tell us all the time. Brian gives us advice on shows, and he's like, listen, people, they want to hear about this. These are the guys they want to know about. Hit the portal hard. So we've been doing that here on the Locked On Horned Frogs. The coaching staff has been doing that. Brian, they're trying to add to the offensive line. You can never have enough bodies in that room.
That's true.
And James Brockermeyer coming over from Alabama, they just had the coaching change there. So some moving parts. But what do you see? I know he hasn't played a ton like within that Alabama offense, but what do you see from him? How can he help this interior offensive line for TCU?
First off, he played more special teams last year, and he was pretty good at it. So that's going to be a bonus. At worst, he's going to be your backup center, I would imagine, and he will compete for playing time in the fall.
Yeah.
Alabama is so loaded up front on offensive line. Oh, he didn't play a ton. It's freaking Alabama. So,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, he was highly recruited, not as much as his brother, but he was still highly recruited. He was a 3-star kid. And now he's been through Alabama's weight program.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. Like, he's going to be a kid that's a graduate transfer. He's a kid that's going to have the opportunity to come into that weight room and be one of the guys. He'll compete for playing time. And like being who his dad was, I remember his dad was a dude.
Right.
I imagine he's got a chance to play. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised they moved parts around. Maybe he played guard or another guy did too. He's an interior offensive lineman first. Let's look at it that way. He will give you depth at multiple spots. That's the good news. There aren't many guys, like you mentioned. You can't have enough offensive linemen to get an experienced guy. He's from the Dallas area. Family is familiar with the area now. They've been there for a long time. This is a win-win for TCU. Worst case, he's a backup, but he's got a chance to start at a spot hardly anybody gets somebody out of the pool.
My read on it is, so they had Colton Deary, TCU did. They've had him working at center during the spring, and he came over from Maryland last offseason, played some at the guard spot this past year. So I think, as you said, Brian, they're trying to find out, okay, who are our best 5 guys? And we'll mix and match. Now we've got kind of the interior offensive line solidified a little bit more. From your perspective, I know O-line is one of those positions. If you're in the portal, you're going to get a lot of interest because everybody needs, those big bodies up front. What is the challenge because TCU is kind of reworking this thing in the portal instead of through the high school ranks. I think Sonny's trying to do that, but it's taking some time to get the guys he needs in that room. How challenging is it to get a cohesive unit? When those guys are having to communicate so much together, when you're bringing in 4 or 5 new players during the offseason and trying to get them up to speed, or is that just kind of what we see now in college football?
I think it's all but impossible. I've said this on numerous shows because everybody asks me, like, where are the offensive linemen in the portal? It's not on the sheet that I send out to all you guys, and you send it back to me like what you want to talk about, but it's on every show. Mm-hmm. Nobody has enough offensive line outside of maybe like Georgia or Notre Dame.
Right.
There's like 2 or 3 schools that they're good, but everybody else that's struggling. Even Notre Dame needs tackles this year. That's a team that's always top 5 at O-line. There just aren't enough of them. And if they're good, like Notre Dame lost both their juniors to the pros. So they're good, they're going to leave. Mm-hmm. So I think this is just part of it because you're looking at a spot where one guy is not going to be the key. It's all 5 playing together. The cohesion's impossible, man. If you've got 3+ guys competing for starting spots that you bring in, even for the full spring and then summer, it's hard. But if you've got multiple guys that are part of that you brought in after the spring, good luck. That's just really hard. So offensive linemen are built. They are not made. And that just means time and reps. Mm-hmm. So there might be a game or two where they struggle. The communication's off. A team knows they've got a newer line. The game before, they run a certain scheme, but they change it up a little bit and go with a 50 eagle look or something. There's something different. And then on the first drive, you're like, uh-oh, we haven't seen this yet. And we're all new together. And, things can go badly. How do you adjust? How do the coaches change that? Those are really, really difficult questions to answer. But this is what most teams in college football have to do now.
Right.
Kids are not going to sit. They're not going to wait. And most O-line rooms, if they're right, at minimum have 13 or 14 guys in it. But because of the portal, it's starting to – I forget who I was talking to the other day. Somebody told me they had 8 scholarship offensive linemen. I'm like, you guys are in a world of hurt. I'm not saying that's TCU, but I'm like, oh, my goodness. That is a disaster waiting to happen right there. So if TCU needs transfers, that's one thing. But, like, getting everybody on the same page out of the portal, it's got to be one of the hardest tasks in all of college football.
Changing gears a little bit to some 2025 players. So one thing I'm excited about with Andy Avalos' defense, I'm hoping that brings more edge rusher type players into the fold here. The guys that'll be more interested in, hey, we're going to get after the quarterback. So they went and got an intriguing prospect out of DeSoto, Keelan Abrams. And he looks a little undersized to me, Brian, but 23 and a half sacks at the 6A level in high school football in Texas, like that's a pretty incredible production. Do you think he can project as a true like stud linebacker edge guy? Is he more of a outside linebacker athletic type? What did you see when you watched him play a little bit?
He makes me think of the hybrid defenses that you see at the high school, college, and even a little bit at the NFL level. 3-3 stack, like an edge will drop back to linebacker on certain plays. They mix and match their parts against what you put out there and how you line up. Used to be if a team was in 12 personnel, which means 1 running back, 2 tight ends, this is probably a power run play or play action. Now those 2 tight ends, it might be one's at one slot and one's at the other, and they're running a screen. If you don't have the right personnel in, the jackrabbit's loose. So you got to have versatile kids, and I think this is a good way to do it. 1st and 10, he might be a rush guy. Might be at will on another spot, and they might even put him at the overhang nickel or whatever, star, is it whatever you want to call it, and blitz him or drop him into zone on others. You must play the chess game that the offenses are doing. If you don't have multiple, not everybody has to do this. We do have a couple of guys that can play multiple spots that you can challenge their thinking. It's hard to be effective as a defense in today's age because just about everybody, as you know, Steve, especially the Big 12, they can all throw it.
Yeah.
You got to get guys off balance. So I don't know if he's a every down edge. I would lean no. But, man, his get-off is good, and he's just a good athlete, really aggressive, and he's playing at a good program. So I would imagine you're going to see him move around. But 3rd and 6, even if they know he's coming, can they block him? That's the other thing.
Last summer, I talked to you about Ty Hawkins, quarterback. He was their first commit for the 2025 class. And Brian, it's that time, or this summer, I guess, was that time of year, the spring. He's been competing in like all these Elite 11 regional events. There's suddenly a lot more attention around him. He was one of the first guys that Kendall Briles, kind of locked in on when he got here as the offensive coordinator. What are the keys now when you see a kind of a rising prospect like this that they did a good job of finding him sort of early in the process? Now you have to hold on to him through all these different opportunities, especially at the QB position where there's just going to be a lot of attention around, the way he plays and the way he performs.
I saw him play, and I've met him. Really, really good kid, down to earth, plays San Antonio, like athletic, can move around. But the most important thing with him is he's cool under pressure, and he'll make the big throws. He's just kind of like water off a duck's back. And that's why he's been successful. And I think TCU is one of the first to the party. He's not the tallest kid. He might be 6 foot or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but he just makes plays. So I think it was a good get by them. And based on what I've seen from him, he's a guy that can make adjustments after the snap. If everything moves around, post-snap reads, he'll be one of the guys that will make some adjustments that others don't. And he'll frustrate teams by moving the pocket, making the first guy miss, extending plays. He is a modern spread quarterback, very heady kid. So really kind of fits TCU's program, to be honest with you, because they've won with a lot of guys like this in general, not just a quarterback. Okay, this kid's good. We're not sure about him. Texas might take him, or they wouldn't, maybe not. TCU goes all in and they get a guy like this. Well, schools like Texas are now sniffing around too. So he's good, man. Like, he's had a really good spring. I'm not surprised that other schools are at least looking at him. I think he can play it for anybody. Again, accuracy never goes out of style. Like, he's very accurate. That's bottom line. If you get put it where it's supposed to go, I don't care how tall you are. It's irrelevant. So, and he's got the right mindset. I think TCU did pretty well here.
Last prospect I want to ask you about, he actually committed yesterday. So Dillon, Arkansas, linebacker from Denton Ryan. Similar type of thing, Brian, as far as Abrams now. It seems like he's more traditional interior linebacker, but was also rushing the passer at times, doing some different things. What stood out to you when you watched him on tape?
Another kid that can run, a little undersized, could play him at the overhang, could grow into a weak side backer, modern defensive player. When you have kids like this that you can move around, it's the same deal. He's not quite as big, but you must be able to confuse the opposition, create big plays, turnovers, and sacks, because they're going to dink and dunk their way down the field with these spread offenses. They're about impossible, especially with the bunch. You got to come up with, havoc plays, if you will. Depends on how you want to chart it. This is the kind of kid that can do that. A little undersized now, but a year in the weight room, adds 20 pounds like he plays at 210. He can be your outside linebacker in today's game and be an effective player. So I think they're recruiting the way you should. The days of the 235-pound outside linebacker are pretty much over.
He's Brian Smith at FBScout_Florida. You can catch him all across the Locked On Network. Brian, if they follow you on YouTube or on X, what can they expect from you as far as recruiting coverage goes?
Well, I run the Florida State podcast on Locked On, so if you want anything about Florida State or recruiting in the South, that is definitely my area. Right now on my Twitter, the big thing is just following the portal. Like, it's just wild. Like, as a football fan, you don't know where some of these things where these kids are going and stuff. I look at it when I see it on my screen. It's crazy. I make comments and talk about who they are, but it's wild, man.
Coming up, more thoughts on this 2025 class and some Big 12 basketball news. That's all coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I've been telling you about it lately. One of our great new sponsors, Monopoly Go. If you want to compete against your friends, or if you want to team up with your friends, whatever it is, whatever your heart desires, maybe not whatever your heart desires, but a lot of great opportunities with Monopoly Go game on the App Store and Google Play. It's free to download. You can play on classic Monopoly properties, iconic venues. They have interactive boards and different settings, so you can play in different ways. And again, you can team up with your friends. You can play against your friends. It's free to download in the App Store or on Google Play. They have cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure and more. There's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win. Monopoly Go. Download it today. It's available in the App Store or on Google Play for free. Monopoly Go. All right, resetting a little bit. So we had Brian Smith there in the first segment, our recruiting expert here on the Locked On Network. And if you were like, wait, who is Dillon, Arkansas? He's a new commit for the 2025 class. Denton Ryan, a linebacker. And I was watching him this morning. As Brian said, this is the new wave of really most defenses these days. You have to have hybrid players. Hybrid meaning they can do different things, play different positions, have different responsibilities. And Keelan Abrams certainly fits that mold, who they got earlier from this week from DeSoto. Now, Keelan is more of a outside edge pass rusher type. Now, Brian in his segment there said, listen, I think they can move him around to the will. He can be sort of a overhang kind of safety / linebacker type as well. He can be in your more traditional pass rushing sets. And with Dillon, when you watch his tape from Denton Ryan won a state title this past year. They always have nasty defenses. You see the physicality. You see the athleticism, the ability to run sideline to sideline and make plays. Did a really good job, reading some screen plays, getting out to the boundary, making things happen. Now, he is playing more in an interior, like inside linebacker box type of position. As opposed to stand up outside edge, even though he did do that at times during his highlights. But typically when they were bringing him on blitzes, it was through the A gap, through the B gap, coming between the tackle and guard. That's more traditionally what you see at the linebacker position. So this seems like a guy that can do a lot of different things. In high school, he's been playing, inside linebacker. He can also be active in the pass rush game. He had a few interceptions, made a big play against Aledo on Haas Haney where he didn't get a sack but hit him as he threw the ball and forced an interception. Is active in covering guys out in space, when he's playing zone or man at times. Can run down screens and any sort of Abrams and in Arkansas both. The thing I noticed, at least at the high school level, you can't run slow developing plays against these guys because they are so fast to get to the football that they read and react and they're in the backfield before it even gets going. So, those draw plays, those kind of slow developing zone reads where the quarterback's trying to find the person that he's reading and they're not blocking, those plays continually get blown up by these players because they're just so quick to get to the football and make things happen. I think this is a big pickup. He's not currently ranked in the 247 Sports database, but I think he'll get a ranking. And he's got a pretty impressive offer list. It's one of those things like, again, maybe a little undersized, but I have faith in guys that can hang at places like DeSoto and Denton Ryan. That's top of the high school football world. They're playing against great competition each and every week. If they can be productive there, I think there's a good chance that they can be productive at the next level too. I had an offer from Baylor, Rice, California, Duke, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, and then a number of Group of 5 schools. So he's been well recruited, gotten attention from a lot of different programs. Not ranked right now, but I wouldn't pay a ton of attention to that. I think he's going to be a good player for TCU. He'll be active in this defense. Ken Wilson, the linebackers coach, really hit the ground running here. And I'm sure Andy Avalos has been a part of these recruitments as well. But he's gotten on campus and he's going after guys and finding talent. And I think it's going to be a huge asset to have a guy like Wilson on the staff who has been a head coach before, who understands how to scout players, who has been around for a long time, and just gets the essence of what this defense is, what they're looking for, the types of players they're looking for, and is trying to find those, hybrid guys that can play multiple spots, get things done, and make things happen. And so Dylan Arkansas from Denton Ryan, he is added from the 2025 class. I think I said this or explained this, but James Brockermeyer is officially committed. So the Alabama center that's coming over to play at TCU, he's officially in the fold. And he should be on campus shortly to go through summer workouts. And, I've said it before, Brian mentioned it, like this is at the very least just quality depth for your interior offensive line. But I think it's more than that. I feel like this is the guy who's going to play a lot of snaps. He's going to be a factor for you. Yeah, he was not playing a lot at Alabama, but Alabama has a great track record of putting offensive linemen in the league, having great physical offensive lines. If he could hang around in that 2-deep rotation and be part of that program for a number of years under Nick Saban, then I think he certainly shows the promise of being a really competent player for TCU at the very least. And I feel like he's going to be more than just a potential backup center or backup guard, but at the very least, that's what you're getting is just another piece where, somebody gets injured or if you have to rotate some things around and mix and match and have some moving parts, you've got a guy like Brockermeyer who can slide in at either center or guard and should be able to play at a high level, and you don't have any sort of big time drop off when he's on the field. So exciting movement here on the recruiting front for TCU football as they continue to try to build that 2025 class and finish up the roster for this upcoming season. When we come back, we'll get to some of your reactions from yesterday's show. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're brought to you in part by FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make your first bet a winning bet. Just $5 down, and you get $150 in bonus bets. That's right, $5 bet, win or lose, get $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com/lockedon or download the FanDuel app. NBA playoffs going on right now, NHL playoffs happening right now. Really good night for the Stars and the Mavs last night, both going up 3-2 in their respective series. Stars won 3 in a row. Mavs bounced back after losing a close game in Game 4. Major League Baseball also happening right now, so that's more opportunities for you to make money at FanDuel.com/lockedon or the FanDuel app. Again, $150 in bonus bets with just one $5 bet. Win or lose, you can get it done at FanDuel.com/lockedon, betting partner of the NBA and proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So on Wednesday's show, I talked about a few guys that were moving on from the program and trying to find somewhere else to be. Andre Selden, who came over from New Mexico State and transferred in this past semester, didn't really crack the rotation, so he's decided he's going to move on again and transfer one more time. He's moving on. Also, Breon Ramsey Brooks, a big offensive lineman from Oak Cliff, who was an intriguing player because he's got incredible size, and the book on him was if they could get him in a place where he was more physically ready to play Power 5 football, he could be a really intriguing piece, but after 1 year just decided to move on. And so I think the timing of it makes me believe that this was either a mutual parting of ways or TCU was like, hey, probably better if you look elsewhere. That's just I don't have insight there. That's just kind of my general read on the situation. But either way, he's going to be looking for a new home after spending 1 year at TCU. Tyler Jones says he thought Brooks was never going to see the field. He was a huge long shot at need position at the tail end of the 23 class. However, we don't even have a complete two deep for the offensive line. We certainly don't have 8 or 9 guys you would feel confident in rotating. He thinks the depth is absolute abysmal. I actually feel okay. I mean, I think they need to add one more piece, but I mean, at least, center and guard, you got Colton Deary, Carson Bruno, Cade Bennett, Remington Strickland, and now James Brockermeyer. That's 5 guys that you feel like you can work in and out in the interior of the offensive line. Bless Harris is going to start at one of the tackle spots. Ben Taylor Whitfield got valuable reps last season, mainly on the interior offensive line, but he'll be at one of those tackle spots. Mike Nichols has played over the past few years. So that's 8 guys. I mean, now once you get past that, Cooper Powers, is he ready as a sophomore? We'll have to see. I think the bigger issue is now you just got to find guys at the tackle position. I really do like what they have at center and guard. You might have to mix and match, but I think there's enough players there that you can get your best 3 on the field. And the other intriguing thing about Bruno now is with Brockermeyer coming over, he played Carson Bruno played tackle at Louisiana Tech. And my guess is maybe they have doubts about him having the athleticism to play tackle at the Power 5 level. They just don't think he can get his pass sets quick enough and move well enough to play at that spot. But if they want to reconsider that, I think they've got some good pieces at guard. But ultimately, I feel like you got to go find another tackle in the transfer portal. And that's always a tough thing to do because usually when we're talking offensive line, there's, some sort of caveat. Great offensive linemen, really good offensive linemen in the portal are hard to come by. I think TCU has done the best they can at kind of rebuilding that. Richard Berry says, I look at the transfer portal like a job market. If there's more money somewhere, then the majority of us would do the same thing. I didn't figure the big man would play much, so best of luck to him. Yeah, I mean, it certainly is like a job market. I mean, players are looking around, coaches are looking around. I think this was just after 1 year, it didn't work. Really intriguing player, but didn't work out, and so he's going to move on and go elsewhere. Let's see here. Steven Suarez says, I thought it'd be fun to see Bubba carry the ball in short yardage situations like Refrigerator Perry did for the Chicago Bears. Yeah, that was kind of one prevailing thought a lot of people had. Could they do something fun like that? And that would certainly bring down the house if he scored a touchdown at A&G Carter Stadium, but it's not going to happen. And, I think to get rewards like that, you have to find your way on the field first. And unfortunately for Bubba, he didn't do that at TCU. Jim Norris says he thinks one of 2 things are going to happen this year. We're going to suffer another mediocre season, or coach will resurrect that old purple magic and TCU will storm through most of them. I mean, that's how it's gone lately. I wouldn't mind having a more consistent year from the Frogs, but I'm certainly not going to I'll be really happy if they find a way to win 10-plus games. And that's sort of been the roller coaster we've been on. It's either missing a bowl game or having an unprecedented successful season. So I hope it's the latter for our sake, because I'm excited about TCU football again upcoming this fall. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up the week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day.